Guys, Ryzen Shine here, and I'm really excited to bring you the Demon Souls Remake trailer analysis. This is one of my favorite game of all time. The only game I think is better than Demon Souls is the first Dark Souls, and Demon Souls is also better in a lot of ways compared to Dark Souls, the original, and the remastered. It's better in terms of the atmosphere, the soundtrack. Some of the boss fights are more interesting. The levels are definitely overall more interesting if we consider them as individual levels. Obviously, Dark Souls has an interconnected world, and that is something that really elevates it to the next level. But Demon Souls, the each area, 1-1, you can talk about 1-3, all of those areas are really good levels in their own right. Now let's look at the pros and the cons of the final trailer. So based on this trailer, we can form a lot of conclusions about what the final product is going to be like. It reveals a lot of different scenes, a lot of boss fights, a lot of the best enemies in the game that are not bosses. So there is plenty to go on. There are also other screenshots that we have right now, and based on those, I can assume a lot of things that have definitely improved, a lot of things that might possibly be changed for the better or for worse, but some things that do concern me a little. Let's start on a high note. What do I like about this trailer? Firstly, props to Bluepoint for making a great trailer. I never thought a scene of back-to-back bosses and enemies could be so engaging, but they managed to do it. Props to them. The first thing I really liked about this trailer was the scene from Tower of Latria right after the opening of the trailer. There we see the gargoyles descend onto the player, and from that scene alone, I can clearly make out that they have improved upon the atmosphere of that particular level. Just the lighting is fantastic. It's the same mood as the original, but it's much more detailed. That volumetric ray traced lighting really makes a huge difference. And also the architecture of Tower of Latria, at least the Fool's Idol temple, looks to be a little bit improved as well. The gargoyles design has improved for sure, and the fluted armor, in my opinion, I know not a lot of people share that opinion, but fluted armor also looks really good in this trailer. So the Tower of Latria atmosphere, fantastic. There are two scenes from the Shrine of Storms, and both of them are excellent. So the first one comes right after this Tower of Latria intro, where we see the Storm King descend onto the player with his flying manta rays. The next one comes later on in the trailer, where we see the first Skelly at the beginning of the level. And I've got to say, they've actually improved on that atmosphere tremendously, even more so than Tower of Latria. Firstly, the Storm King, the arena, it actually storms. There is actually a storm going on in that arena this time. In the original Demon Souls, the entire level feels like a storm is just about to come, but it's never really there. But here we can actively see heavy downpours, lightning in that Storm King trailer. And in the Skelly's trailer, we see that there is fire right at the beginning of the level. A lot of particle effects going on in there, and somehow it adds to the atmosphere in a way I can't really describe, but it definitely makes that shrine a bit more, interesting, I would say. We also have another shot of Shrine of Storms, but it's in one of those caves with the Reapers, and I'll get on to the Reapers later on. The next scene is of the Tower Knight in Boletarian Palace, and it looks great. I think the new architecture of the Boletarian Palace looks so much more complex and more like a real place than the original. Even though the original was great, but this one looks more real, so much more detail going on, so much more vineyards and vines creeping up through the palace, showing how old it is. I think it looks a lot better than the original in that sense. And also the Tower Knight himself looks so much more detailed, yet so faithful to the original, which I love. I absolutely love. but not the entire trailer is not like that. So I think in this particular character they did absolutely phenomenal job. And one interesting aspect of the Tower Knight I find here is that the tower shield is broken. So if you've not paid attention to it or looked at it closely, the right side of the shield is completely torn apart, as if some other warrior in that time period fought the Tower Knight and broke it apart. I think that adds a lot of lore to it, visual lore, the kind of lore I like about in the Souls games. Next Pro is not about a particular scene, but the overall vibe I'm getting from this trailer and the overall vibe of this remake. I think they are absolutely nailing a lot of aspects of the remake, and overall I have faith in Bluepoint. But also, just the addition of the ray tracing alone, that makes a huge difference. I'm glad that they skipped past the PS4, even though I had one just a few months ago. So instead of that, now we are getting a straight up remake for the PS5 from the ground up with ray tracing. I appreciate that. And another thing I appreciate is the fact that they have a frame rate mode and a fidelity mode to satisfy all kinds of gamers, whether you have a 4K TV and want the best picture quality possible, or just want to play the game at 60 FPS like me. It satisfies all bases. Now for the parts that I really don't like about this remake. The Flame Lurker design. It looks really generic compared to the original. Looks like a demon spawn from Doom. Just doesn't belong to Demon Souls. Because in the original, the Flame Lurker looks like it was a human at some point and then later on turned into a demon. It just has that in the character design itself. Has a more grotesque feeling to it, but also a more humanistic feeling to it. That really takes it to the next level. The more you look into the design, the more it just grows on you, the original one. But this just looks completely different, completely inhuman, and also looks very too generic, man. This just doesn't belong in a Souls game, because that is one of the charms of the Souls game is the fantastic art style, the design of the characters. I think this takes away a lot from it. Another thing I don't like is the lighting of Boletarian Palace. It just doesn't have that gloomy feeling of the original. That really sets it apart from other similar locations in other games. Just the lighting of that original. Even with ray tracing on, this just doesn't feel like it's going to be on par with that. And I understand that the original might be lit that way because of the drawbacks of the hardware itself, the PS3 hardware. But that just gave it so much more of a feel, just a certain vibe to it, just a really gloomy, dark vibe to it that I think is missing from the other Souls games. Just no other game in the series has that kind of vibe, and it feels like the remake would not have that vibe either. Dragon God also looks to be a bit hit or miss. The cinematic in the trailer, that's just not present in the original. Maybe they are completely overhauling this boss fight, or maybe it's just a cinematic, we don't know. Because it's completely new, I'm not entirely sure about it, but let's see.